What is going on, everybody? I hope you're having a great week so far. So today's video, we're actually going to be talking about Osome, whatever they want to be called, they can be called. I think it's called Awesome, but everyone's going to say it differently. They are an accounting company for predominantly e-commerce / Amazon sellers. Now, why am I doing this video? Well, I posted in the group yesterday about some issues regarding my VAT return, and I'm just going to talk about how I feel that Osome are a great company to choose in terms of if you're looking to level up your Amazon business, maybe from a traditional accountant, which is what I used to have, where they were literally just dealing with normal sort of standard businesses, not e-commerce specialists, for example. And for me, taking that step up, paying a little bit of a premium, but nothing crazy, I was able to massively change the way that I saw everything, because the things that they were able to discover and advise me on since I transitioned from my traditional accountant is kind of mind-blowing. Just as an example, my accountant at Osome found about 55 grand in errors relating to how the traditional accountant was entering some of the sales data. So actually I had 55 grand of extra profits around that that were unaccounted for as profits. I don't know exactly what was going on, but the issue is, I'm sure that a lot of you will know, is if you're using, say, Xero or an accounting software, and your accountant is going into that software and then obviously using it to figure out what is due for tax reasons and stuff like that, it's very difficult sometimes to go in and actually understand what that accountant has been doing. For example, I would go into my Xero account when I was at the traditional accountant, and I would look and wonder what all these transactions were. They created a completely different bank account on Xero, or Ledger, you could call it, and they were adding all these transactions in, which I couldn't really figure out what they even were or where they were from. For example, I wouldn't be able to clearly track what these entries were based off of data, for example, because I didn't use any software like Clink My Books, which is a software that a lot of Amazon sellers use to make sure that you're accounting properly for specific reports, to make sure it's allocated in the correct areas. Because just because you get a payment from Amazon for 5 grand, it doesn't mean that, and obviously that payment obviously is 5 grand to you, but that whole payment comes from like a £12,000 sort of charge in terms of sales. Then they take the fees and they split it out from the shipping and the gift wrapping and all that various things, and the shipments, various things come out of that. Obviously then you're left with the 5 grand. And that, with Link My Books, obviously split out, but with the traditional accountants, they may not be using that. And yes, you could add that to as an extra cost to your business if you want. But I just found that with the traditional accountants, they may be cheaper initially. You might have to pay, I think it was £75 a month I paid. That didn't include self-assessment, didn't include VAT returns. So it was just year-end accounts. Yeah, I used to do my own VAT returns. And for a bit more of a premium, you can obviously get all of that covered, but that would take you into the hundreds of pounds a month at a traditional accountant. And then Osome might be a bit more, but it's really not that much extra for the extra service that you're getting and the softwares that you're able to get as a package on top of that. And obviously, like I just said, 55 grand in profit was sort of magically hidden somewhere. I don't know what the old accountant did. And basically the new accountant had to go through and basically scrape through everything and figure out what the hell was going on, because they couldn't really understand what my old accountant was doing. And if you just think about that in terms of if you ever got audited and the auditor had to go through that data, they wouldn't potentially be able to make heads or tails of it either, and it's just going to cause a lot more hassle in terms of long term. So short term, you can clearly do that. But as you grow your Amazon business and there's more transactions going on, there's more going in and out, there's more different things that you're doing within that business, I would say try to figure out a way of transitioning your business, obviously if you can afford it, to some sort of e-commerce specialist. There is many out there, but I have seen this company around before, many people that I know that use it, and I thought I'll give them a go. So let's just kind of go over some of the stuff here. What are they? Basically, Simply, they are Amazon specialists. They do other stuff, but they are Amazon specialists, right? Now, the main thing you might be asking, well, what's the pricing on this, right? What is the pricing? So is there actually a section that says about, well, if you want, you can incorporate. But let's just go accounting for e-commerce. Here we go. So you can see here, they actually will do many. So maybe you're doing Amazon and Shopify and all that kind of thing. So they're able to cross in terms of understanding their knowledge for you, which is, it's kind of that peace of mind. Because what I used to think all the time with an traditional accountant is like, are they actually doing that right? Like I would look at the year end and I'd be like, obviously the expenses was kind of straightforward, like how much you spent on like phone bill or how much you spent on paper or services or prep center, that's really easy to see. You can clearly see that. But when it comes to stuff to do with sales and VAT and all that kind of thing, it's just kind of just bunged into one value, one entry. And it's very difficult to figure out where, what they've done. And even if you go through the data, like I've just said before, I couldn't make heads or tails of it. It would take me months and months to go over, and obviously that isn't something that's like realistic. I'm not going to spend 3 months just going over data for my year end, which I've already submitted. And so obviously I had to take their word for it. But you can see here, if you want to go to pricing, it will depend on the size of your business. So what is your average monthly sales? So let's just go 25 grand. Let's just say that the kind of medium-sized business is around 25 grand. And the way it works is that it's scaled. So as your sales go up, changes, the cost changes. So it's basically done like they'll look back over the last year and they'll figure out, what is your average monthly sales, and they'll work out what that year would be, and then they would charge you. But obviously you can see what's your average monthly sales. So it's kind of like it's on like a pro rata basis. They'll work it out as it goes on, as it comes for a renewal. I've been paying yearly to get a bit of a discount rather than paying monthly. But you can see here, price per month is in a really weird currency, which is bizarre. Okay, I'm not going to worry about that. That is clearly a weird currency. I think that's $300 a month here. Oh, sorry, yeah, it is. It's just got it twice. So, billed annual is $275. Obviously, here you can see if you can pay monthly, it's $330. But you're going to need the accountancy fee, right? So it's like, why not just pay it up front? Like, it's not like something you're going to be like, it's like a software. You could be like, oh, maybe I'll just try it out for a month, so I'll pay monthly. And see if it's not good, I can just cancel it rather than pay a year. But with accounting, it's going to be something you're always going to need. Definitely at least 1 year, and after that year you can go somewhere else if you really feel like that is something you potentially need. You can kind of see here, personal accounting, bookkeeping, in-chat app, tax advice, savings and stuff like that. Software, you get software with it, so you get Xero included in the charge, and you get Link My Books included in this charge. Okay, and obviously I'm on the 50k a month, so let's just say it's at the 25k. Oh, that's 50k. Yeah. So actually, you see here it's in dollars. Obviously, you might be saying to yourself, well, what is that? What is that in pounds? Well, I went on and looked at mine. I paid for the year this much, but obviously there's VAT included in that. So my net amount is 2,450. Obviously, if you divide that by 12, I'm paying about £204 a month for my accounting at approximately, it's hard to say what it was based off on the last invoice in terms of sales, but let's say it's like 30-40 grand a month. I don't know if that's averaged out. Obviously Q4's larger, so it's going to be higher than that. So I'm not sure what they exactly based it off, because they don't tell you. They just obviously figure it out by looking at your historical sales. But also it is worth bearing in mind that VAT is obviously not included in turnover. It's separate. So if you do £1 million in sales on Amazon, you in theory haven't actually done £1 million in sales on Amazon. It's just something that is worth maybe discussing with them if you want a clarification on that. But anyway, for £205 a month, you're getting Xero, which is about what, £25-30 a month, £29.99 or something, and you're getting Link My Books, which I'm not entirely sure how much that is, but My Books, we can quickly have a peek and have a look how much the cost of that is. Let's move my fat head around. Let's just go. I actually don't want to sign in, so Link My Books pricing. So we've got Light, Pro, and whatever. So that's to say we're doing $5,000 a month. Jesus, it's actually quite expensive. I didn't even realize. Let's have a look. historical data 3 months. I'm thinking that you probably have something like this. It is not impossible that it's actually this. If you're actually looking $85, if you're doing like 3,000 units a month, $55. So you're getting this, obviously 2 months free on annual, fine enough. They're obviously paying for that as part of the package. So you know, even though you're paying a bit more than what you would potentially be paying at a traditional accountant, it's not massively different. It's probably £50, £60. It's not like doubling the cost. It's adding like 30, 35, maybe even 40, depending on what you're doing. But I'm also getting my VAT returns and stuff like that done. So I was paying £75 a month, but I didn't get my VAT returns. So if I added that on, it might be 120. And I'm not getting, and I'm getting on-demand help, because my other traditional accountant would reply to me as and when via email. Sometimes they wouldn't even reply to me because they might even lose the, forget the email, lose the email. And so like, it's kind of like, well, okay, like that's really helpful. What if I have something urgent? Do I have to call them? And it's just getting annoying now. I've got to call them and do stuff like that, find the right person. Just to look at the kind of interface. The interface looks like this: dashboard, accounting, reporting. But you can also log into Xero, and I usually log into Xero to look at everything because that's where everything is entered and created. So the accountant will go and use Xero as that kind of in between to build everything, just like most accountants. They use a program software like that, and so I'll just go into Xero and I'll actually look through the reports, and obviously they're going to be the ones that are going to be entering that data. The only thing I've got to do is connect the bank accounts, and we're pretty much golden there, right? And just in terms of like help and advice, like with a traditional accountant, they normally charge you for help and advice depending on what that specific thing is. It might be that you have plenty of profits left over and you're looking to invest in property, for example. You want to maybe buy a warehouse, or you want to buy a unit, whatever your idea is, but you also want to understand how that works in terms of how that works in terms of when you buy in a business compared to, say, personal. Is there any tax benefits to that, various things like this? Or you want to potentially create like a holding company because you have two businesses, and then you want to divert funds from the limited companies into a holding company. All this kind of chit chat about figuring out that kind of thing. They're happy to answer you, and that's the great thing about it, is that they're able to advise you on things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to get without paying for at a traditional accountant. And just showing you, I'm going to hide obviously some of these chats, right? But this is me and the guy at Osome, like my dedicated accountant, sorry. And you can just, let me move my head over here, somewhere, it doesn't matter. You can see that over the last 3 days, because I had a VAT return, look how many back and forth emails we've had, right? And I would not get that at a traditional accountant. I might get a reply within 3 days, maybe 2 replies at most. And you can see here I had obviously some messages pop up in my actual sort of dashboard, which is here. But also they message you via email like this anyway. And obviously any other question you can see down here. If you've got any other questions, well, you won't be able to see it, but he basically says if you got any other questions, let me know, and I'll help you out. And that's the great thing about it. They're really kind of responsive, and you almost like get to know them on a more personal level than you do with a traditional accountant. A traditional accountant that I had for years, I never really even got to know them that much. I just knew like their first name. I never really spoken to them much. Very limited back and forth. And also what we discovered through this back and forth chat on something like this is that there was an error with Link My Books. That's why I'm doing this video, because there was a £18,500 VAT liability to me. And I was like, hang on, that's not right. 90% of my products are 0%. Sometimes more, but let's just use 90 as an example. It's roughly pretty low. It's like 10% of 20% products. Obviously, I've got many expenses that go against that, like prep center charges and various services, but mostly the prep center stuff, which is a couple of grand a month, 2-3 grand or whatever it is. Obviously, the VAT on that can be reclaimed over for 3 months. And just running some basic data analysis on my end in terms of what VAT would be payable on the 20% products for the 3 months. Obviously, split them out manually, gives me a rough figure of how much liability I have from sales. But obviously, I would net that off against my expenses, and I would come to a figure. And my figure in my head was grand, maybe 2 grand, maybe less. I didn't like, like without being an accountant, like, taking the responsibility of account. That's kind of like what I worked to that as. They came back with 18.5 grand. I was like, that's wrong. Even my Q4 last quarter, because my December fell into the last quarter's return, it was lower. Not massively, but it was lower. And so I was like, how can it be higher when my sales are down? Because obviously December's the highest sales, so it's going to be down from there, right? And most of my products in December are going to be a lot more 20% products than they are in March, which are going to be a lot more zero. So I knew something was up. We had a bit of back and forth where I was trying to, basically show them or him the issue, saying, look, I don't understand. I literally just showed him a couple of screenshots of, this is my total 20% products sales for the 3 months. This would be the estimated VAT. Obviously, I'm not sure of the expenses and all the other unknown aspects that could increase the VAT, because there's various things that could increase the VAT. But ultimately, I know it needs to be lower. He looked at that. He looked at the report and came back to me pretty swiftly, after a couple of days, and basically said that, obviously, once he kind of come back to me and said how much was due, and I was like, that's not right. He was very swiftly able to rectify the problem and figure out, with some help, that's the great thing about it. They don't always just do it themselves. They actually get help from other accountants. So sometimes you have a team of accountants, if it's something time sensitive, that are helping resolve your issue. And I know someone else there as well, because they used to be my accountant until they swapped. So basically 2 of them were working on Link My Books because there was an issue, and actually the reporting through Link My Books was flipping the 20% and 0. So everything that was 20% became 0, and everything that was 0% became 20, and therefore that's why my VAT liability went to 18.5 grand, because it was basically representing 90% of the sales as VAT, rather than the 10% it should have been. So, quickly they obviously went away. They did whatever they did behind the scenes, whatever that could have been, and they fixed it, came back to me. I then looked, and actually he said initially it was £1,000 VAT bill, and I was like, yeah, that sounds right on, around the money, exactly what I kind of predicted in a way. Actually, when I actually looked further into the actual zero reporting, it was actually minus 1,000. They owe me, because I do have there's a good chunk of VAT that I can claim back from prep services, because they send quite a lot of stock. So I know that if my VAT is actually relatively low, from sales, to basically the more 0% I have, then sometimes I can get a rebate. Definitely when it's Q4, there's no way I'm getting a rebate. I think I paid 16,500 last for December, January, February. But yeah, that's obviously fair enough, because Q4's Q4. But throughout the rest of the year, it's usually pretty low. It's around that 0 mark. 1 grand payable, £100 receipt. It's kind of around there. Usually, as long as I don't push the 20% products, which I usually don't in the year, because that's the sort of the way I do things now. And so I just feel that the kind of response in terms of the service is really it's reassuring for any Amazon seller, because the last thing you want is knowing that there's a return coming up, you've got queries and your accountant's barely replying to you, or if they are, they're not really understanding what you're saying, because maybe they're more traditional. They don't understand the technicals behind what you are telling them based off Amazon expertise and knowledge, right? To them, they're just like, what does that even mean in terms of the e-commerce side? And some people have said they've got a bad rap. They're not actually that great, awesome. But actually, for me, I've been with them. This is my second year end coming up, and they've been great. I haven't found any issues. If I've got queries or problems, or I'm confused about something, they'll come back in and advise me. They won't just say, oh no, it's fine, this is correct. They actually give me an example. They give me details of how to understand it my side, so that I have a bit of peace of mind that I know that they're doing the job correctly. Obviously, if you clearly see any issues, then I'm literally writing out a wedge email with pictures and stuff. They're reading it and getting back to me within a couple of hours. And with traditional accounts, I would not find that possible. It depends on how big the team is, right? And for me, they've been great. The price is a little bit more expensive, but really it's not that much extra, considering you're getting the extra online services in terms of Zero and Link My Books, and you're getting the sort of to hand response system that you're getting for anything that you need. Usually I don't use them in terms of asking them stuff through the year until it's like VAT returns or year end and stuff. But you can. That's the beauty of it. And yes, there was people have said they're not great, but it's like any accountants. It's going to be very rare that there's ever an accountant where they haven't got some people that don't really find them good, basically. It's like any software and service, BuyBotPro, FBA Multi-Tool, or like repricers like ProfitProtectorPro and stuff. Like, it's always going to be those people that love it, and there's always going to be those people that hate it. And that is just going to be, how life is with everything, right? Just because, some people love McDonald's and some people hate McDonald's. It's just going to, but the majority would probably say that, yeah, it's decent. That's all you want. You want an accountant that's decent. There's always going to be times where you're going to have to maybe do some back and forth and clarify and give them a bit more details because they're not used to your specific Amazon business. They're used to e-commerce, but specific transactions or ways that you've done things. Or for example, sometimes I pay my credit card off of my personal account, and then I basically pay myself back from the business because of the way that my card is, or something doesn't work properly. I forget exactly what it is now. And those little things obviously are going to have to reiterate to them how things are working. But once they've been told, they usually don't have to ask again. And it gets a little bit, personal. Where traditional accountants, it just feels that, they don't always remember exactly what you're telling them in terms of e-commerce. So e-commerce specialist accountants are really the way forward, just to make sure that you can sleep easy at night and not think, is my VAT return right? Is it wrong? I know many Amazon sellers that use Link My Books, but they have a traditional Amazon accountant. And even then, they've reached out to me and said, I don't even think my VAT return's correct, because I don't think that my accountant actually understands how to use the Link My Books data correctly and allocate it to the correct appropriate ledgers or whatever they're trying to do. So even with that, it is hard to make sure that things are working. But for me, I found them to be great. Everything that what I do is I normally have some sort of prep in mind. Like, the accountant's going to do what they can do, right? But you want to, if you're the one that runs, has been running your Amazon business for years, then you pretty much know it inside out, like the kind of transactions that you put through, the sort of things that you're doing, like why you're moving money to different bank accounts for specific reasons, maybe paying for virtual assistants. You'll know that out the back of your hand. They won't necessarily know what's going on there. And it's just being aware that in the event of something happening, you're able to quickly jump and understand sort of what's going on and look for a solution, work it out between you, and obviously reiterate to them specific parts of information that they need to obviously help for them to understand your business inside out, right? So, I'm going to leave the video there, but for me, I'd rate them like a 9 out of 10. No accountant's going to be 10 out of 10. It's going to be very hard. And if they are, who knows if they're going to last, because a lot of people probably want to go to them and then they're going to get a little bit overwhelmed, and then maybe, the reply time, for example, might decrease because they've got a lot of work going on. So, I definitely found that with a traditional accountant. They would say, oh, we've got a lot of accounts to do right now, so I can't, I'm not able to reply to you so fast. It's like, well, aren't you going to have a lot of accounts all the time? Because, your accountancy company that has businesses that have different year ends. So that means every month's year end, So I'm going to leave it there. Obviously, if you are interested in signing up at all, you can get £100, as you can see here. Your friend buys a service and gets £100 off. So you can use this code. Obviously, I'll copy it to clipboard and post it in the below chat. But you'll get £100 off of your bill, and it can cover up to 50% of any bill. But if you're doing a yearly, that will be fine. If you're doing monthly, I guess it will split over 2 months. But yeah, you can see here, £100 credit off your next Osome bill. So if it's monthly, you'll get 50%. Well, yeah, it depends on how much you're paying ultimately. So if it's more than 50%, obviously it will be split. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Gave you a little bit of information about Osome, because I've never actually done a video on them. It's not something I've really talked about massively, but for me, I give them a 9 out of 10. And I have been using them for a good 18 months. So it's not a ridiculous amount of time, but it's enough time to understand, are they suitable for the job, is what I'm trying to establish here. Can I rest easy that I understand and believe that they're doing the right things? And the answer is yes. So anyway, have a great day, everybody, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.